Welcome to the Shine Away podcast. Today I'm joined by Matt Lisle. Matt Lisle is a coach, creator, and entrepreneur with over 3 million followers across social media. He's the only coach in the world to have coached at every level, from Little League Baseball to Major League Baseball. Over a 25-year coaching career, Matt's helped athletes chase championships and confidence alike. Today, he's taken that same playbook from the field into life and business. Through his new coaching platform, Built Different, he helps high-achieving entrepreneur dads scale their businesses, reclaim their time, and lead with purpose. Matt lives in Northern California with his wife, Jessica, and their 5 kids. Welcome, Coach.
Hey, thank you, Jake. I appreciate that, man. I've been looking forward to this. So, after coaching 25 years in the field and now kind of stepping into this other world and helping dads and stuff, so it's been funny, but I've enjoyed it. So, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So, obviously, your background is on the diamond, it looks like. But let's jump back. Besides playing baseball, were there any other sports you played?
Yeah, as a kid, I played everything. I mean, literally every sport that was available. And back in the late '80s, early '90s, we're playing roller hockey in the court. It was just everything that everyone wanted to play. I lettered in 4 sports in high school: football, baseball, basketball, and track. I was probably a Football was probably my best sport. I signed to play Division I football, and then ended up playing a little bit of baseball, and didn't get into coaching really young because I started my family really young. But I played everything growing up that I could possibly play. I loved all sports.
So, through that time of growing up, and now that you've had a chance to look backwards, were there any specific coaches that kind of stuck out or stick out now today that maybe helped peak or shape your coaching future?
Yeah, there were a lot of them. My dad coached me all growing up, and my dad he coached for a long time, 35 years. He was a high school head coach at my high school, not the time that I was there, much after, but him for sure. Just having my dad coach me all those years, and as you guys, most people know, dads are a little tougher on their kids than the rest of the team. So I think that kind of shaped some of it. But my sophomore year of high school, our music teacher at high school, and he was one of our football coaches. His name was Coach Sanza. Still good friends with him to this day, 30 something years later. And he really was the first coach to really just invest in me, love on me, and kind of just really kind of change my life in the way of just being that male father mentor guy through high school. And so I always think of him when I think of someone who kind of had a huge impact on my life, coaching wise.
Yeah. Well, I was coached growing up in youth by my dad, and that kind of spurred me to want to coach myself. And so I've had the pleasure of coaching my 3 kids in various different sports, and that's something I would been try to be cognizant of, right? Is don't hold them
Yeah.
to an even higher standard than everybody else. Try to hold everybody to that same standard, but that's really hard to do.
Yeah, it is. It is really tough. I've got 5 kids. I haven't coached them very often, just because of my own coaching career. It just doesn't really allow it. But I've stepped in here as an assistant coach here and there. Yeah, it's tough to not, try to hold them a little more accountable than you would other kids, especially at the younger ages, because the things you want to say that to your own kid that you probably wouldn't say to another 8-year-old kid. So
Yeah.
it's tough.
Yep. The 25-year career, was that predominantly in the baseball arena, or did you coach any
Yeah, I
other
would
sport?
say I coached. If you look back at my career, I want to say I probably did 15 years of baseball and 10 years of softball, somewhere give or take a couple, maybe more like 17 years in baseball, maybe 8 years in softball. Um, I've only coached softball at the college level, mostly Division I. I coached a little bit of Division II. I was a head coach at the NAIA level, but so my softball coaching experience is more just college level. At baseball, I've coached, little league, high school, college, Major League Baseball. I've done literally every level of baseball for sure.
So, I guess first off, explain what drove you, like what's your why on coaching? Like why did you want to jump into the arena of coaching? Because it can be difficult. It can be very rewarding as well, but it can be very difficult, especially at the levels you've coached. It can be the high of highs and the low of lows. So why do you coach?
Well, I started out coaching just because it was an opportunity. My old high school coach asked me to come help, and I was trying to get my baseball career going in college and different things, and so he asked me to come back. And my grandfather coached college football for 38 years, and I would always talk to him about just how much he loved it, and he never felt like it was a job, and so I never really thought of it as a career. I kind of always thought, okay, when I started coaching, maybe I could be a high school coach and a high school teacher and a PE teacher and a coach, and like that would be my career. I never really thought ever beyond that. I really didn't. Uh, and so that I just kind of started because of opportunity. That was kind of start. And I think the first few years of me coaching, I mean, I was a 24-year-old head coach at a high school baseball program. I look back to that time, and I was so young and immature and naive and all the things. I had no idea what I was doing, and I just loved baseball. I loved coaching. I mean, I loved, wanting to be so it was fun. And I was just kind of getting my feet wet and trying to learn how to be a coach. I knew the game, but I knew nothing about coaching. And then as my career progressed and I started coaching, I coached, at my old high school, then I coached in college, and I had some opportunities in college and went back to high school and kind of went back to college. And for me, at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. It really is. I think that the reason why we coach is the same reason why we love parenting. I think just having a great relationship with someone, and I think for me personally, at the high levels, you have that relationship piece, but you also get to see them execute at a high level. For me, as I really enjoy it. So for me, it's hand in hand. Like, I love being able to help someone at a high level achieve their dreams and goals, and hit a home run in the playoffs or whatever it is. I think for me, but also having that relationship with them, I think this kind of goes hand in hand. So at the end of the day, it's just about relationship, and I think that's what I think I enjoy most about coaching. I love winning, and I'm the most competitive person and all that stuff. But I look back at all my seasons and like, you remember the winning seasons, and those are amazing. But I also like the relationships I've had with players, past, former coaches, all those things. They're much more memorable to me than most of the wins.
You've you've had a really unique career coaching little league and everything all the way up to the highest level. I believe I saw you were a hitting coach for the White Sox or some organization in Major League Baseball. What did you use at each level? Like, how did you use what you learned coaching kids and coaching majors, coaching high school, and all the levels in between? How did you intertwine those? Like, because obviously you can do something at the major league level that you can't do at the high school level because those guys are the elite. But I'm sure there's
Yeah,
things that you can take both ways. So, how did you use what you learned growing up through the coaching ranks from a 24-year-old to the majors? Like, was there something that stuck out that, like, it doesn't matter what age, this works?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like, my philosophy is pretty simple. Coach the person first and the athlete second. And so for me, no matter what the level is, like trying to meet the player or the athlete like where they're at. So like, I've helped my 8-year-old son's fall ball baseball team this year. It's like, you're obviously going to talk to that person different, and you're going to coach them different based on that. At the same time, like coaching major league players, again, like you're coaching the person first. There's a lot more being a psychologist at the higher levels than there is, as mechanics matter, but like mindset drives everything. So like in baseball, I approach that, I teach approach over mechanics in a sense. So it's like the mindset is more important. And so for me, I think it's just meeting athletes where they're at and then trying to build the plan. So, finding out like what drives them, what do they want to accomplish, what kind of goals do they have, and trying to figure, okay, that's your plan, that's how you want to. And so, it's younger kids. I mean, I think the goal for most of them, like, you don't come across a lot of kids that say like, I want to be a major league player. What's my plan to do that? It's like they want to enjoy the game, they want to win, they want to have fun. So it's like, okay, how do we do that the best? And then as you get to the college level, it's like, okay, I want to be all conference, all American. I want to win, whatever the things are. It's like, okay, that's great. Like let's figure out how do we do that? How do we get you to achieve that? I just think that at every level of the game in a sports, everyone's different in that, and I think it just kind of scales kind of more seriously as the levels go up, I guess.
Yeah. I talked to a high-level soccer coach here. He's similar to you. He coaches some professionals and the youth. And one of the things is they did in the past was a study to try to make the game more fun for the youth. My kids quit because baseball's slow and they were bored. Is there any way we can adjust or like help kids to enjoy it at the youth level. I know coaches can play a big part in that
For
because
sure.
if you put, I mean, it's a game of failure anyway. Like the best in the world hit 300, and that's 3 out of 10. So I mean, you're going to fail more. Like, but there's still success in the failures. Kids just don't see that.
For sure. I mean, there's a couple things that go on in baseball and softball in the sense of that. So the biggest problem that we have in baseball is that it is boring. Most of my kids, of my 5 kids, only one of them is still playing baseball. He does love it, but you kind of have to love baseball to be able to survive the first few years of it because it is very boring. I'm the first one to say that, and I love baseball. I've been in it for 45 plus years. For me, the issue is the tempo of the game is really slow at the younger levels. If your kid plays on a youth team, like a little league team, you have like one coach and you have like 10 players, and they're rotating and trying to get. It's just, whereas in basketball, soccer, and these lacrosse, these other sports, like they're moving the whole time. Their brains are and their bodies are going the whole time. So it's a few different things. So one, I think coaches have to find ways to like break them into small groups. So whenever I'm coaching at a very young level, we've got many stations and kids are like competing, trying to gamify practice as much as possible, try to make zero standing around as possible. And I know it's difficult. And even the games themselves, like my son right now, he's playing in a thing called bash ball, which is like a 5-on-5 baseball here in the fall ball. And I think that little leagues and teams can find ways to try to break it down so the game's a little bit more exciting, higher tempo, until we get to the older ages. And obviously, and I think the game changes a little bit, but we've got to find ways. That's one, that's one of the reasons I think. And two, like you talked about the failure piece, it's really hard. My son, he hates failing and has a hard time with it. And so we've got to find ways, from some life lesson standpoint, but also, again, trying to find ways to mitigate that just a little bit at the younger levels. I think if we can do those two things, I think there's a higher chance of them continuing to play. But baseball and softball is very tough at the younger levels because of that.
Yeah, that's the thing that I've noticed. So I coach my kids as an assistant coach, and we usually would have 4 to 5 coaches at practice for that simple reason of you take these kids, you take those, and let's not just have kids standing around. They hate standing around, and
Yes.
then they ultimately at the young levels they'll pick flowers or pick grass or pick dirt, and then as a parent you're annoyed, and so that never is a good thing. But I do like that idea. What is bash ball? Like, is that?
Yeah, it's really just a local league that we have here in the Bay Area, and so they play like over the line. So it's like 5-on-5. Each team gets a bat for 5 minutes at a time, and there's like they play for 45 minutes or 50 minutes, I guess. And so each team bats 4 times for 5 minutes, and it's rapid fire. You swing, you hit, and if you can get it past, there's a defense every 10 yards on the football field, and every time the ball gets past them, you get a point or a run, and if you hit it over the last line, it's a home run. So the games are like 87-72, and it's like it's kind of crazy high tempo, but like for the fall especially, it's really fun because it's constantly going. The kids are not, it's just going. It's very high tempo. You get 2 pitches and you're out, and so it's kind of just this rapid fire of these kids hit, next person hit, boom, boom, boom. You got 5 minutes to hit. So however fast you can get your group to rotate to the plate. It's just a really fun version. The ball is a little softer, that cloth baseball. It's a little more like almost like a t-ball ball. It's a little softer, and it's fun. Like I said, over here we have it for kindergarten through 6th grade, and it's just a fun way to kind of break up the monotony of baseball a little bit. And I said, I think you can go on YouTube and type in bash ball and kind of learn the rules of it, but I think it's really only locally to us, and I think it's a great idea. When we lived in Oregon, there was another way that we did fall ball there that I really liked, was each team had 4 players. So each team only had 4 players, and 3 of them were on the field at all times. So you have 3 people batting, 3 people in the infield, and 3 people in the outfield, and they just would rotate. So you go from hitting to outfield to infield, and again, like everyone's moving around, 3 or 4 people to a team. To me, ideas like that, I think, are the best way to get people involved in, playing the game and being excited about it.
Well, I may have to look into those because I talked to again. My boys have hung up their cleats as far as baseball, but I do talk to a lot of people that have younger kids, and they're going through those first couple years of kid pitch that are super slow,
Oh,
and
yes.
especially in the fall. And I personally believe that as much pitching as we ask kids to do year round nowadays is leading to some arm trouble, but that's just my opinion. Um, Transitioning to your college coaching, you coach college softball and you coach college baseball. Is hitting obviously hitting's different, but is it the same as well? I mean,
Yeah,
is
I don't teach
it
any. I don't teach anything different. Baseball and softball swing. I mean, I'll tell you, like I've coached at, at, at every level of college baseball and softball and the highest major leagues and every in professional softball players. Everything is exactly the same. At the end of the day, like if you wanted to argue like down to the very details, baseball has a steeper attack angle in the sense of pitches coming in. It's very subtle. It's not a reason that you would ever change anything in the swing. The time you have to decide, all of those things are exactly the same. Balls on baseballs come in a little bit steeper attack angle than a softball, but it's not enough that you would change a philosophy or a swing because of that, really. So I teach. I've had a lot of success teaching the exact same thing on both ends. I think, and I think in softball, maybe 10 years ago when I first started arguing that, I think I had a lot of pushback and there was a lot of people arguing that and it became a big thing. But I think now in 2025, especially at the higher levels, you don't see that conversation is kind of dead. I don't think anybody in softball at the high levels would say that it's anything much different. It's a very small population of people who would argue against it versus 10 years ago it was probably 90% of the people. Now it's probably 10%.
the in Kansas here where I'm located, they started wrestling program for the girls side, and many of the high schools the same coach coaches both, and so I've had that conversation with a few of them about the difference between high school boys and girls. Having
Mm.
coached college age athletes on both the male and female side, do you have to approach the mental side differently with them?
Oh yeah, I would say that's the biggest difference. I think, and I think everybody's different, so it's not. I don't think it's fair to say like boys versus girls to an extent. I just my own philosophy and my own experience has been that with coaching female athletes, sarcasm is definitely does not land very well. Delivery and tone is really important. Empathy goes a lot further. I mean, I think for both, but I think I have had to learn that tone and delivery. Like for me, I'm a very dry, very direct coach, and I have learned that there's a lot of female athletes that have not enjoyed that, and so I need to approach them a little bit differently. Where I think for a lot of men that I've coached, you know, you can get away with a little bit more sarcasm. You can get away with probably a little more direct, and tone is not received as poorly. And so, if anything, it's maybe a better coach. I think just having to learn different styles and having to learn how to like do better at tone and delivery and do better at empathy, coaching female athletes. And that's really the only difference. I think like the drive to um, to win and be competitive. I think the only difference that and it's tough at college softball and baseball level is that there's the professional softball league and they've had several of them. They're still trying to get it going, and I hope that they figure it out someday. And right now they've got a pretty good model. But like for 99% of softball players, college softball is the end of the road, and like they've reached it. That's it. On the baseball side, you have all these division 1 athletes, baseball players who like their dream is to play major league baseball. They're trying to get drafted. They're hoping to make millions of dollars. And so the way that they approach the game is just a little bit different. And I think that a lot of them are trying to reach that goal so hardly that it's just a little bit of a different mindset for them than it is for the average division 1 softball player, because they kind of reach the top of the mountain. They're trying to do the best they can at that level, but they're not working towards like a professional level, making millions of dollars thing. At least not yet. I think maybe one day we'll get to a place where that's the goal.
What made you transition? You've been coaching baseball and then you transition. How did you get into the softball and the college ranks? Like what was that step? What caused that?
It was really just opportunity. I think I have been coaching high school baseball. I coached a little bit of college baseball, and went back to high school baseball. And for me, I didn't play college baseball at a high level. I didn't have any connections, and like at the college level, it's really about who you know, at least back then, 15 years ago. And so for me, I was like, okay, what can I do? And I ended up watching, I had never watched softball before. In 2012, I had watched the whole postseason. I watched the College World Series for women's softball. I was like, oh my gosh, this sport is so awesome. It's so fun. It's fast paced. Like there's so many good. How do I get into this? This is awesome. And I sent my resume out to every college coach in the country. Ended up having a lot of different conversations. I'd actually accepted a job at North Carolina State, and the 12 hours after I took the job, the head coach got fired. And so I ended up going to the University of Oregon. That was my first coaching job. And we ended up winning the Pac-12 for the first time ever, and I had a lot of success. And so it kind of launched my career, and I just fell in love with softball. And so throughout the next several years, I coached softball, a little bit of baseball. Again, it was at the end of the day, every year and every season came down to decision like what's best for my family. I mean, as you know, for most of those college coaching jobs that I had, I was a volunteer assistant. One year I made $13,000. One year I made $24,000, and these jobs are like 80 hours a week. They're not like, part-time jobs. And so trying to get into college coaching, and especially with the family and having kids, it's really challenging. So every year I would try to evaluate, like, okay, how can we make this work? Is there another rung up the ladder? And so I just kept trying to, find out what was best for my family. And so we jumped around a lot and trying to get to a position where it's like, okay, full-time pay. And that really didn't happen until I ended up coaching the SEC at South Carolina 2018. But it took me about 6 years of coaching college softball to really get a, job that paid enough to pay the bills.
Yeah. Did you? Is your background primarily as a hitting instructor as a coach? I mean, obviously
Yeah,
as a head
yeah,
coach, you do it
yeah.
all.
Yeah, I've been a head coach for a long time, and I coach a lot of other areas. But hitting's my expertise. It's what I became known for. It's kind of how I built my social media following. The early years of social media was just giving away a lot of hitting tips, and next thing you know, it just kind of took off. And I started working with a lot of major league players 2014, 15, 16, probably worked with about 50 plus major league players every off season. And that kind of and because of social media, and especially social media 10 years ago, it really like catapulted my career because there just wasn't that many people out there doing it back then. Now it's a whole different ball game.
Well, that was something I was wanting to get into because you're obviously very well known right now in the social media world. 3 million plus followers, and was it just the idea of, hey, I'm going to put these videos out there and see what people think, or like what was the
Yeah,
drive
it's
behind
funny.
getting into social media?
I really got lucky. I'll be honest. I think 2011, I was coaching. I'm trying to figure out how do we make a living for my family, and I started following a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, and he had some posts on social media. It had been Facebook back then because there really wasn't a whole, and maybe Twitter. And I read one of his books, and I got in contact with Gary V. And if anyone knows, like Gary V's got millions and millions of followers. And so I ended up talking to him, and he was like, hey, social media is the next thing. You've got to get into it. And I think it's going to be a big thing. And so I'm like, okay. And so because I was coaching high school, I was trying to figure out my place in the world of coaching. I started on my Facebook page, started a Facebook page. I just started sharing like every hitting tip or coaching tip like you could possibly think of, just like as I do now. And next thing you know, I had like 100,000 followers, then like 200,000 followers. And then on Twitter, again, like it just kind of took off. And I think, again, 2012, you have to remember, like I was the only hitting guru on Twitter, and there really was nobody else. And so I think same thing with Facebook. Like it was such a landscape back then that like it was so easy to build a following. It really was. And so I ended up building probably over the course of like the next 10 years 1 million followers just on the coaching, giving coaching advice, parenting advice, hitting advice, and so I just kind of stuck with it, and it just took off. And I think back then, when it came to hitting instruction, you could buy, when I first started doing it, you could buy DVDs, right? You could buy like there was VHS tapes, and there was DVDs, and there were a couple guys selling DVDs for hitting online, Charlie Lau and Mike Epstein, these different guys. And I don't know how I thought of it, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do an online course. I'll film all of my drills. I'll film all my stuff. And I sold it for like $39.99. I launched it in 2014, and for a lot of people that now it's called Masterclass. So now there's all these master classes you can take. Well, this was Masterclass 3, 4, 5 years before that. And again, I came up with the idea. I'm sure I saw it from somebody else, and I was the only online hitting instruction website on the internet at that time. And so again, it was a different time, and it allowed me to build my following. It allowed me to build more and more. And once you get to that large following, it's a little easier to build the dominoes, and it keeps growing.
You've taken that, and now you're a coach who says jokes. What made you get into doing those posts? Because I enjoy
Yeah,
them. Like I said
yeah,
when we talked earlier, laughing is the best medicine in my opinion. And so what was the push for that?
yeah. It's funny. So, like I said, I want to say around 2022, I'm still coaching and I'm still doing the hitting thing and get it going. And I probably had about 1.5 million followers then, maybe 3 or 4 something years ago. And my brother, my youngest brother, who probably has, I don't know, I'm going to guess 8 to 10 million followers now, maybe more. He started doing dad jokes with one of my other brothers, and he had an idea of doing them deadpan delivery, try not to laugh, and doing them on a dock because my parents lived in Lake Tahoe. There's a dock there, and so he called it Dock Talk, and he started putting them on TikTok. And because call it Doc Talk because of TikTok, and kind of during the beginning of COVID in 2022, and it just absolutely blew up. He went from 0 to 2 million followers like overnight. And so he asked me, "Do you want to start doing some of these with me?" So I'm like, "Oh, cool." And I thought like it would be fun to do. And next thing you know, like it just absolutely blew up for both of us. And I probably gained 1 million followers in the first year of doing dad jokes with him. And we just had a lot of fun, like just two brothers on the dock and doing funny content. And then next thing we're doing dad jokes at the CMAs with Luke Bryan and Cole Swindell and Luke Combs and all these guys. And we've been able to do them with Joey Chestnut and NFL players and comedians. And it turned into this just insanely big thing. And at the same time, I was coaching college softball. I was coaching at Oregon State Division I level, and over the last couple of years, and it became such a big thing that it really helped me to change. So in June, after 25 years of coaching, I decided like, hey, I think it's time for the next step for me. And if you're coaching at the college level, at professional level, it used to be maybe a 60-hour a week job. Thanks to the portal and NIL, and now it's an 80-hour a week job, and you never see your kids. It's a really tough job, and I think there's a lot of people who do it well. And for me, it's always been a struggle to choosing a career over my family. A lot of times, I'm missing out on every single family event possible. And I think because of social media, because everything had blown up for me, starting in June, I decided to stop coaching and start doing business coaching. Over the last several years, I got so many friends or people reach out to me like, hey, how did you build your following? How did you build your business with the Hitting Vault and all of these things? And starting in June, I decided, you know what? I'm going to step back from coaching. I'm going to work from home. I'm going to build. So that's what it's called the Built Different playbook. And so now I started coaching people on social media, entrepreneurs like dads. And so for me, it's been a great shift. I get to do podcasts like I will with you now, and I get to do helping dads who own businesses free up some time, make some more money. And so I've been able to really enjoy shifting from coaching on the field to now coaching in my office. And now I get to walk my kids to school every morning. I get to pick my kids up from school. And things have it's been I get to play a lot more pickleball and golf, and it's been a great transition for me. So I still get to coach, I still get to do a lot of things that I love about coaching, and I get to coach my kids a little bit more too. And I miss coaching at the highest levels and coaching team, but the trade off has been well worth it so far in the 4 months I've been doing it, because I get to spend a lot more time with my kids and doing fun things that I love to do.
Well, before I want to talk a little bit more about Built Different, but before I do, who is the best golfer, you, Rob Riggle, or Kevin from The Office?
Kevin from The Office for sure. Brian Baumgartner. Those guys are both about 8 handicaps. I would say Brian and Kevin from The Office a little bit better for sure, and it was so fun to get to play with those guys. Thank God they gave me 10 strokes, or I would have lost. I would have lost a lot of money that day.
So yeah, you referenced it there that you've now transitioned to a different style of coaching, built different. Uh, just let's advertise a little bit for you here. Like, how can people get in
Yeah,
contact with you?
yeah, for me, so for me, it's been awesome. I think what it is just basically one-on-one coaching I do, and some group coaching as well. But basically, I try to find dads who were similar to me in the sense that they work tons of hours, they're burnt out in the sense of work and trying to make a living and trying to free up systems for them to figure out, okay, hey, how do we work less, make more money so that you can spend time doing the things you love, and just kind of helping build systems, helping to coach on the social media side. And I think, it's I've been really fortunate to have a lot of luck in social media and business and the things that I do. But, I've learned a lot along the way. I've been around a lot of great people who are really smart in those areas. And so for me, again, it's been like one of those areas that's like, okay, hey, I can help some people. And I've had, I've helped some musicians and artists. I've helped baseball coaches who own indoor facilities who are trying to make things happen. And I think, when it comes to people, I think everyone's trying to make more money. They're trying to spend more, have less time doing it. And I try to help those people do that. And I think it's been a really fun experience so far. I'm hoping to continue to build it. And so I think if you're an entrepreneur dad who works too much and wants to make more money and spend more time with your kids, reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram at Coach Lisle or Matt Lisle or CoachLisle.com. And I've got systems in place to help do that. And again, some one-on-one coaching, and it's been a really fun experience, and I'm hoping to continue to build that.
Yeah, I love that. Like, that's one of the things I've always struggled with as a dad is trying to balance work and coaching and kids, because we don't really think about the short amount of time we actually get to spend with our kids, and the bulk of the time we ever get to spend with our kids are from birth to 18. And then after 18, you can have a lovely, like, I still love hanging out with my dad and my brothers, and I see them, but that's a lot less than those first 18 years of their life. So anything you can do to assist a dad, or I mean moms too, but in this case dads, for helping be present and not overworked and tired all the time. I love that. So
Yeah.
thanks for doing
And I
that.
think it's for me, my oldest son, he's 21, he's a senior in college, and we talk here and there, but like, he's a senior in college, he's got a girlfriend. It's like, we text messages and stuff, but he's going to school 500, 600 miles away. And yeah, it goes by so fast. And I missed a lot of his life because of that. And so, I think, and I think a biggest thing is, I think as men, or as business owners, we're really good at budgeting our money, but budgeting time, I think, sometimes gets away from us a little bit, and we end up working, oh, I'm gonna miss this basketball practice, or I'm gonna work a little bit, I'll try to work there. And for me, like, what I've learned is how to budget that really well so that I can actually unplug and be able to be present for games and practices or pick up from school and those things. And I think for me, like, that's just been a huge unlock for me, and I've been able to really enjoy getting to do some stuff with my kids that I haven't been able to do for almost 25 years.
Well, I think we're to the quick hitters, which is some of my funnest questions. Just throwing some stuff out there and let you kind of go. You've had the pleasure to coach some wonderful hitters throughout your career. Just give me a few, maybe 3 to 5 that you've had the pleasure to coach on both softball and baseball that are some of the best that you've ever coached.
Yeah, I think for me, again, it comes down to relationship and just people who I enjoyed pouring life into. I think number one was Daniel Descalso. I helped kind of revive his career at the end for the last few years, and now he's a bench coach for the Cardinals, and that's really fun. I got to really spend many years with Mitch Haniger, and he's probably one of my favorite. Awesome relationship, and when he made the All-Star team, he sent me his jersey and cleats and gloves, and I've got it uh, kind of behind me on one of these shelves. And so, like, that was really rewarding for me. And I got to coach Jock Peterson for the first couple of years of his career when he was an all-star. And so those are kind of some of the baseball guys top of my head. Softball, it's been fun. I've been able to Alexa Peterson, now her name is Alexa Henderson, at Oregon. She was a kind of the middle of the pack hitter and then next thing you know, she was a Pac-12 Pac-12 All-American. She got inducted into the Hall of Fame at Oregon this year. I got to be there for that, and she attributed a lot of that to me, which was really emotional for me to have someone stand up there and say that I was a big piece of that. There's probably one or two players from each team that I could probably list that I'm still really close with and have really enjoyed. But I will tell you, for me, as much as I love coaching those high level players, I would say that some of the best memories I have of coaching have been at the JUCO level or NAI level. And I couldn't give you a reason why that is, but I think that's been some of the most fun teams I've had, or some of the teams I think are some people would consider a lower level, if that makes sense.
Well, I think you referenced it earlier with the difference between coaching college women because of the potential lack of a next step versus some of the college men. I think a lot of kids that go to the NAIA, maybe JUCO, they feel either overlooked. Like there's just a
Mm, totally.
different strive. They're striving so much harder than some of these guys that have had the good looks or the Division One like that. They just there's I'm a basketball guy, and so I've watched some of the local basketball NAIA, and they're still really good players at every level. They are
For
really
sure.
good, and uh,
I'm not sorry. I don't know. I don't know what happened there, but
that's okay. Who are some of and not necessarily that you've had any influence in, but just from your perspective watching softball, who are some of the best hitters you've ever seen at the softball level?
oh man, that's a great question. Lauren Chamberlain's probably the first one to come into my mind. Jada Coleman. I think there's a few people that I've just enjoyed watching over the years. I think my boss at Oregon State actually was four-time Olympian Laura Berg. She was a great hitter. I think Jocelyn Allo to me is a great one. So there's been a lot of great hitters over the years that I think are pretty incredible.
Sorry, my oldest son just poked his head in here and trying to annoy
Oh,
me. uh,
that's what kids are for.
but yeah, well, you heard two of my kids earlier. The dogs just go nuts on somebody, and it was just because my son got home. But let's throw it to the baseball side. Some of the best baseball hitters you've ever seen.
I would say when I studying mechanics and studying the swing over the years, I would say to me number one was Miguel Cabrera. Incredible hitter, but like his swing mechanics were just Mike Trout. I've always enjoyed the hitters that I think are more normal sized human beings that have success, like Mookie Betts and the Jose Altuve, some of those type of athletes that are, again, like get the most out of the body. I think Aaron Judge and Stanton and all those guys are in Shohei are incredible hitters. They're also just monsters of men. So that's a little bit different, but like I've enjoyed the hitters again that I think get the most out of their swing. I'm not. I grew up an A's fan, so I always hated Barry Bonds. But like Barry Bonds, probably the greatest swing of all time. I loved watching Ricky Henderson hit, and some of those guys. I think some of those older guys are really fun to watch hit as well. So, Freddie Freeman, I think of those guys. So those are kind of the guys that I try to reference a lot. I think, but I always try to reference guys that I think outperform their body, if you will.
Yeah. Just real quickly, you brought him up, Barry Bonds. Should he be in the Hall of Fame?
Yes, he should. I'll say my friends will be shocked at hearing me say that because I think I've argued against it for most of my life. Just the problem with the Hall of Fame, I think, especially with Bonds, is like context. Like I don't think it's like I don't think we should lump it like everybody was doing it back then. I also don't think that is a good enough excuse to get him in. But I think like to some degree that it was like right. It wasn't like vilified at that time. It was and he was such a good player above and beyond everybody else. So I think at the end of the day, like I think morals and all of those things, I think they have a place in baseball. And I think if you had a player that was kind of like borderline, now maybe they should be in the Hall of Fame. I think that would be much more of an argument. But like in every circle you talk to, you'd be like, most people say like Barry Bonds were the greatest players of all time, right? So, and regardless of the steroids thing. So I think if we're in that conversation, like I think he should be in the Hall of Fame versus someone who's like, yeah, I don't know, I don't know if he'd be a Hall of Famer otherwise. And so that's where I fall on it now. But for a long time, as a baseball purist, I was very much against it. But I also don't see like the downside of it either. Recognizing what he did and in that time of the game, especially, man, like baseball was so fun to watch. And I think McGuire and Sosa and Bonds. I don't think there's anything against those guys for what they were doing and how they did it.
I would agree. I think that, well, I think McGuire and Bonds were headed to the Hall of Fame prior to that. I
For
think
sure.
they'd put a good enough career to, if you just stopped right before whenever you felt like they started taking the steroids, I think they were in anyway.
I
Sosa,
agree.
I don't know. Maybe that one might be more debatable. Clemens, I think he's in the same boat. I think he would have been in.
True.
And I didn't grow up watching him, but Pete Rose, I know he made a mistake and did some stuff and had penance for it, but I think he should be
Yeah, I
in.
totally agree. Totally agree.
Be in.
And
He's one
I
of the
don't
best
think
players.
there's a lot of evidence that he was like super nefarious in his gambling, throwing games and all those things. That again, like I think context is really important in the conversations of things. And so like obviously he did like, a really bad thing and that wasn't smart, but like a lifetime ban of being the whole like that again, I think the punishment's got to match the crime to some level. And I think, from contextually, I don't know if that really matches up.
Right. Uh, from a hitting coach perspective, how do you approach a guy such as Vlad Guerrero or Salvador Perez, where they swing at a lot of bad baseball pitches, but they also hit a lot of bad baseball pitches and they hit them really far? How do you go about that? Because you talked about some of your favorite people are the ones that you would call the really good swings or the smaller. Both those guys are huge, first of all,
Yes, true.
strong men, but they have such a reach with that bat that they could hit some really terrible pitches and hit them hard.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think what we have to continue to do as coaches is like, what does this person do really well and keep having them do that well? And then what are other areas that we can, change? So like for a great example, like Juan Soto never swings. His swing rate is so low. But like if we told him he needs to swing at more pitches, like, does that make him a worse hitter? Um, you know, um, same thing with those guys that you're mentioning. So like, I think, what are areas that we can improve this person's hitting or production without like changing what makes them really good? I think at the end of the day, the hard part is like, so I get asked a lot over the last several years, like, what would you do about Mike Trout? What would you do with or Shohei Ohtani? Like a player who is, at the top of their game. Like, what would you teach? What would you tell them? Like, I would give them a high five and say, keep doing what you're doing. I think at the end of the day, the role of a hitting coach or a pitching coach or anyone else is like never make a 400 hitter a 200 hitter. And I think that we've got to be really smart with that because as coaches, we want to coach everything. We see all the little things. I could make a list of 10 things that this person's swing or their data says is bad, right? And so do we like focus on that stuff? Sure. Like I think there's ways that we can improve in those areas, but like, does that mean we stop working on the things they do really well and take that away from them? That's a dangerous, dangerous road. And I've seen coaches do that to athletes. I'm sure that over the years I've done that to some extent. And so I think Salvador Perez and Vlad's and the guys who are bad ball hitters, like that's who they are, and I don't want to change that. But maybe we can find ways to like improve that a little bit without hurting them. So it's a delicate balance for sure.
A couple more questions and then we'll let you go. So you've coached softball and baseball, and I've always heard the comparison of a softball pitch is tough to hit. Baseball pitch obviously is tough. So if you took the best pitcher and let's just say Paul Skeens is pitching, and you put the best softball hitter in there with a baseball bat, and then you took the best softball pitcher against Aaron Judge, who has a better chance of hitting that ball?
Whew, that's tough. I honestly think it sounds crazy. I think the softball player has a better chance of hitting the ball. Uh, I like distance and barrel, all the things that would be tough. The hardest part of for a baseball player when it comes to softball is like our brains are computed to like see pitches from here. You've seen, if you're a Major League Baseball player, you have seen a pitch from this hand 10 zillion times from 5 years old to the pros. And then someone throws the ball down here at the side, your brain just can't compute. And then because of softball, having the rise ball, which is, it doesn't actually rise, but like because of the spin rate and because the ball is traveling from low to high, like it is really, really difficult to hit that pitch. Now, if a softball pitcher was to throw other pitches, drop balls and curveballs and things that are more flat, the baseball guy's going to win every time. But like trying to hit a rise ball as a baseball player is impossible. It's almost comical because our brains, the baseball players' brains, just can't compute seeing the ball down here and going up here. Couple players, on the other hand, like the downward angle of the pitch, I think like they train for that a lot. Like even my college softball players, like we hit off baseball machines all the time and to try to create this drop ball angle or these things. And so, I mean, I think in both those instances, I think the pitchers win
Mm-hmm.
handedly. I would say if I had to bet on the first person to make quality contact, it would be the softball player, only because I think their learning curve of being able to recognize the pitch and get a barrel on time is just goes from 0% to 1% in that scenario.
Did you ever step in against any of your college pitchers and try to hit off of them?
Not in baseball, no, but in softball, my boss at South Carolina, her name was Bev Smith. She pitched in college and was a college pitching coach for a long time. So she was a pitching coach, and I was a hitting coach. And we went to Florida to play Florida, and we had some time. And she's like, "Oh, step in the box." I don't even think I made contact. I literally don't even think. And she wasn't like trying to like strike me out. I think she was just throwing average-ish BP. And I wish I could have had it on film because I looked like I've never played baseball before in my life. So, and after that, I'm like, okay, I can't embarrass myself again. And to this day, I don't think I've ever stepped back in the box again. Yeah. Baseball guys, no chance. I became for as much of a hitting coach that I am, I was a PO in college, and probably the last at bat I ever had was in college summer ball almost 30 years ago. And when those guys were throwing 88 to 92 in the college summer ball back then, I was like, okay, I'm a pitcher now. This is not me. So the idea of stepping into a college baseball batter's box with guys now who everyone throws 95 plus, I would never live it down by the athletes I was coaching. So I wasn't going to attempt it.
Last one for you. Who wins the World Series?
That's a great question. I can tell you who I'm rooting for. I think the Dodgers will win the World Series. I can tell you that they are the absolute least choice of mine to win the World Series. My brother is a diehard Blue Jays fan, to the fact that he has a Blue Jays tattoo. I would say that I've worked with a lot of Mariners players over the years. I have some friends that are Mariners coaches. I almost was a coach with the Mariners a couple of years ago. So I'm rooting for the Mariners. My brother's rooting for the Blue Jays. So I'm hoping that either the Blue Jays or Mariners win the World Series. Having said that, I think the Dodgers in the postseason are really tough with their experience and their talent, regardless of the regular season. And so I'm hoping for a great series. I'm rooting for the Mariners to win in 7 games over the Dodgers, or the Blue Jays in 7 games over the Dodgers. But if I had to bet money or really guess, I say the Dodgers win in 6 games against one of those two teams. And that's kind of par for the course, I guess, for Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I think they're going to probably end up sweeping the Brewers, which I don't like, because I liked what I was seeing out of the Brewers. And I would love to see if this season be capped off for Cal Raleigh with a World Series championship. I mean, what he did as a catcher was just unbelievable. So
very, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, rooting for him big time.
They got I believe they got a Kansas City guy, and Kevin Seitzer is their hitting coach right now, if I remember right. So
yeah.
Another reason
and he was with the Braves the last couple of years when they made their run as well. So Kevin's had a lot of posting experience, obviously.
Well, thank you. Let me run back through this and correct me if I get any of this wrong. You can get a hold of Coach Lisle at coachlisle.com. If you would like for him to speak, you can email him at speaking@coachlisle.com, or just want to send him a note, coaching@coachlisle.com. He's on Instagram and X at Coach Lisle. You can see him on YouTube or Facebook with his jokes at Coach Says Jokes. And then he's also on Facebook and LinkedIn as Matt Lisle. So he's everywhere. So hit him up if you have questions, or if you want to learn more about Built Different. If you're a dad out there that's struggling to manage your time or anything in your life, I'm sure he'd be open to having a conversation with you. So just reach out to Coach Lisle and learn more about Built Different.
Yeah,
Coach,
and the best way to honestly, the best way to do that is just DM me on Instagram. I always try to respond to everybody. I get a lot of DMs every day, but I do my best to respond to everybody. And so you can email me and all those things, but I think just DMing me on Instagram is always the best way to get a response.
well, I can attest to that because that's how we're doing this today.
Very true.
Shot him a random DM because I've loved following him and seeing all his coaching quotes and his jokes, and he responded, and here we are. So thank you, and enjoy your weekend.
I appreciate it very much. Thanks for having me on.